Hello there, and welcome to Weird Music on the Glumberger channel. That strange of you are looking at, weird stuff that you can listen to, right? Weird show, weird stuff going on. Anyway, today we're going to the Boxed Kingdom from Adventure Time. We are keeping it card as we dive into an album sourced from the strange cassette label Cardboard Club, based in Bristol, releasing very strange noise expressions on DIY tapes. And so within this very, very, very strange record label, I came across a very odd album indeed. One regarding an individual handling their anxiety, it seems, in the form of weird noise music. Very peculiar indeed, and I think as a result this is going to be a really odd, unusual review. So yeah, getting on with it. Today I present the album I Suffer From Anxiety, but it's okay. I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time, by Self-Heimlich. So, let's of course ask ourselves, who is Self-Heimlich? Well, Self-Heimlich, it's the moniker for one Robin Foster, an experimental musician and multimedia artist from Bristol, whose work seems to explore incredibly strange esoteric explorations of the weird and the unusual. And so when researching about Foster, I found a huge about section on his website that tells us everything and more that we need to know. So let's find out more from Foster himself, yeah? I'm a musician and performer based in Bristol, UK. My work encompasses ideas relating to performance art, improvisation, physicality, sound art, and noise music. Through the performance practice rummaging, I use found objects to explore ideas relating to viscerality in performance and the relationship of humans to the things we surround ourselves with. I'm active as a drummer and percussionist, predominantly in the field of free improvisation, and I occasionally record and release electronic music that makes use of noise, found sounds, field recordings, and custom-made synthesis software. Recent recorded work includes the solo album Junk Politic, released on Fractal Meat Records, and session work, percussion and rummaging, on Ed Dowie's album The Oculus Eye. Recent live performances have included London's Cafe Kino and Okayasu in Tokyo. I have performed with a diverse range of musicians. I was an early member of the Dirty Electronics Ensemble and had a long-standing duo with Henry Collins, with whom I developed the performance practicing rummaging. Outside of my own creative projects, I have worked as a programmer and engineer, designing and building software and hardware solutions for art installations and performance. Notable projects include working with art collective Grey World and as a creative director for Lou Barnell's MELTA. I also produce visual art. I am currently undertaking a PhD at Bath Spa University, focused on developing the practice of rummaging. So, yes, super smart creative dude, right? Multimedia artist with different projects of all different kinds, including a whole bunch of different musical projects too, right? I think, we may need to discover more of this in later episodes, dive into some of these other, record labels, because, I love how when discovering experimental artists, you just branch off into weird record labels and just discover more things, but more on that another day. Anyway, today we are reviewing his project Self-Heimlich with a dive into the album I Suffer From Anxiety. It's okay, I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time. This album released on 4th of September 2020 on Cardboard Club, the strange Bristol-based cassette label that releases really peculiar noisy records on these DIY cassettes. almost minimal and self-made, with the names scrawled in red marker on these yellow cassettes, I think. All of the albums I've got have just this exact same aesthetic, just writing the name in red marker on the tape, and I think there's something brilliant about it. It just makes it feel so just, lo-fi and cheap in this DIY aesthetic of making it in the in the shed somewhere. I think it's great. And there's something very cool about it. And on this one, very interesting album indeed. 30 minutes of this peculiar deluge of noise and drones that seems to be an examination of the self. Looking at anxiety essentially, looking at awkward and uncomfortable emotions and trying to manage it. So let's dive into it, shall we? So, what are we hearing? I suffer from anxiety, but it's okay. I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time. Opens up with side A. I suffer from anxiety, but I think it's okay. I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time. A. And what you're sort of getting here is kind of like a lowercase sort of crackling noise effect, kind of churning away these tiny minute details of grey tones in a thick bowl of unseasoned porridge. We then get airy drones though, mixing into the scene, and what sounds like the droning hums of machines at work. And from there, that's essentially what you're getting. 15 minutes of just sitting essentially with this sound, this persistent lowercase drone of static that clouds up in your headphones. I think it's oddly interesting though, because it definitely feels like a noise record through and through, but it never seems to build up into that cataclysmic build-up of harsh tones that we've actually been looking at a lot on the channel recently in previous episodes. Rather, this one just continues to persist as a sort of low rumbling drone that crackles with this incredibly foggy mist. For me, it kind of feels like a sense of being pulled out of place and time, going through the autopilot during some sort of anxiety attack and trying to find a sense of calm within a chaotic, distorted turmoil. And all around you, everything just feels so fuzzy and difficult to discern. And with the presence of how all this, with all these drones, it just, with how much there is as well, it just leaves us as listeners in a place where we're just drifting off, sitting down with our emotions and just trying to comprehend, handle and understand the process of what the brain does during these times. And the more you let this composition play off, the more it just feels like kind of trying to surrender to the moment and sit there within it for an extended period of time, if that makes sense. I think it's obviously delightful in a weird way though. It does just slowly build up ever so slightly into this rather noisy deluge of static tones and airy drones. But I do think it feels a lot more accessible than a lot of the type of noise records that delve more into the loudness of harsh frequencies. All the tones on this record, I don't know why, but I think it comes across as a little bit more delightful, being a bit more of a comfortable listening experience, in some respects, as it just lets these tiny little generations of sound devolve into a more approachable distortion. It's perhaps unrelenting though, don't get me wrong, but most noise records are in their own weird way. And I think, after having heard so many on, across the making of videos for this channel, it's nice to hear someone doing something that feels a bit different, if that makes any sense. Something that's a little bit more easygoing. This one, it's the kind of noise record that's enjoyable to listen to if you just surrender to the growing miasma of lowercase. And, I guess at times it still has that noise music effect of being that overload of tones, drones, frequencies and static, in some respects. And there is a lot of distortion happening, of course, that sort of kind of thing going on, and very embedded into this mix of very hollow drones. But I always think that's just the thing that comes with noise music in general, and what I find remarkable on this one is how it can kind of just pull you into this odd, relaxing sensibility of just letting go, if that makes any sense. Unlike some of the noise records I have covered though, this one, weirdly enough, despite being a record that, discusses anxiety and stuff, it doesn't actually make me feel as tense and afraid. Oddly enough, I find myself feeling oddly relaxed at times. This is kind of like a loud white noise generator in a wind tunnel. And instead of feeling anxious, it just feels comfortable as the distorted miasma just plays around in the headphones, and you just sort of feel like, well, I'm here, I might as well just enjoy it, right? Very weird to try to explain. In any case, flip the cassette over, of course. We get side B. I suffer from anxiety, but it's okay. I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time. B. And side B, well, this just continues everything. No hesitation, no surrender, just right back into the greys and whites of the storm raining all around in the headphones. Another 15 minutes of this really noisy excursion. So yeah, round 2, we're gonna go through the whole thing all over again. And so, I think that's interesting. What is happening when we hear this then? What's the result of turning over a noise cassette and getting a continuation of the exact same tones for the exact same length of time? It's weird because I feel like we're essentially getting two sides of a coin with the same face, if that makes sense. As a result, I find my mind wanders far more when listening to side B, as I feel like we're returning back to that odd deluge of tones, and in a weird way there's a sense of familiarity, like we've been here, we know what it is, we know what's coming, we know what it is, and therefore we're a bit more prepared in dealing with it, if that makes any sense. And interestingly, my mind considers like a lot more when hearing this side. Like it considers the very ethos of this album and what it's trying to present to us with this very peculiar and amusing title of I suffer from anxiety, but it's okay, I think I deal with it pretty well most of the time. It has me considering the very effects of anxiety. Something, of course, I've had to experience many times in my life before. And considering how difficult anxiety can be to handle at times, it interests me that this very little record kind of explores the notion and the idea of maintaining a handle of it in your own way. And in this case, for Self-Heimlich, handling it through the exploration of noise music. Really weird to me. But yeah, 30 minutes of essentially this airy drone with soft distortion and static playing ad nauseum. And for me, I just imagine the throes and depths of anxiety and how it just leaves you feeling sort of frozen into this state of suspension. Unable to really do anything or, move around or let anything comprehend what's happening all around you. And for me, the very notion perhaps mirrored by the onslaught of these rather persistent but rather soft distorted tone generations. Feeling that anxiety and just trying to process letting go of the situation and just existing within that tumultuous headspace for 30 minutes. Bit of a difficult thing to express, but I think Self-Heimlich has done a really good job of expressing a very abstract concept that a lot of people can relate to, no doubt, through the use of noise music. Expressing a handle over it through an album of 30 minutes of drone, noise, tones. It's weirdly fascinating to me. And it makes me wonder, is it, though, the process of making music or noise that sounds like this and is experienced like this, perhaps the very thing that Self-Heimlich is doing to manage and deal with their anxiety? I would like to think so. It's more about the process of making the music that helps you manage anxiety than it is about listening to it, but also listening to music can help with anxiety as well. For me, it's listening to ambient drone music that just helps calm me down a lot of the time. But in regards to making music, something I've dabbled with and explored with myself, in generating long-form droning noise tracks, there's just something really nice about the process of doing so, and something very therapeutic about this hearing distorted tones for 20 minutes as it just, and just stretching it basically. Like there's a lot of albums I've created like this that are purely just for my own amusement and kind of thing and just to calm me down. But it's also really nice stuff to listen to that just brings everything right back down, if that makes any sense. I'll be honest, it's hard to know for sure how much Self-Heimlich is putting into this album experience from their end, if that makes sense. But I like to think they are presenting something, oddly heartfelt, if that makes sense, with a sort of self-deprecating humour, of course, especially in the album title. And I like that, though. I feel like a lot of the time on these noise records, we are given a very, odd element of humour sometimes when it comes to this genre, And especially with this one, it gives it a very odd existential experience where you feel all sorts of different things from the melancholy, nostalgia, anxiety, and its all good facets, to amusement at the entire absurdity of it all, right? a very interesting exploration of the rather abstract concept of this very peculiar release, and I have to say, I appreciate the peculiar effort of Self-Heimlich to produce an album like this. A really weirdly fun one to have dived into, but also very cool as well to just sort of examine anxiety through noise music. Like, I think it's a very good representation of it, if that makes sense, how anxiety feels like a big cloud of miasma, and then representing that through noise. It just makes perfect sense to me, if that makes sense. And so yeah, I think with that, we'll be coming to the end of our episode of Weird Music there. Very glad to have talked about this, very strange little album, as well as introducing all of you to the strange cassette label, Cardboard Club. Keep it card. No idea what that means, but I'm going to take that suggestion to heart, or try my best. And I have to say, I certainly appreciate the incredibly strange exploration of noisy sounds that express themselves across this entire label, all wrapped up in that weird DIY aesthetic, and the idea of making noise because making noises is fun. It's always a great time, in my opinion. But yep, definitely an interesting one from this label. There's some more that we might discuss in a future episode, but we will have to see. But yep, interesting place to start with, I think. In any case, I would like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music. I wish you all the best, take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.